My dear friends, thank you for giving up your time this morning to listen to a reflection from my heart. No script other than what I'm going to read from the dictionary on the meaning of the word melancholy. It's interesting that many of us who commit our lives to God in a loving service, often we can become bogged down. We can become stale, and we can lose that zest, like cutting a lemon. If it's stale and it's starting to wizen up and lose its freshness, because when you open a lemon and you go woof, you get that zest. Well, the spiritual life is a pathway to God through love in service. And many of us can get weighed down by the troubles in our personal life, in our family life. And for those of us who have lived in monastic communities, we can become isolated in our wilderness of pain. And I know for myself, I can only speak my truth. And that truth comes from love, because I love God. As a young monk, I didn't love God. I was frightened of God. Why would that be? Well, I was frightened of God because as a young man, my birth father, was an abusive, violent man. But to all external appearances, everybody loved my dad. He was good looking, he was seen as the double of Earl Flynn, and he had the most beautiful voice, like that of Mario Lanza. But behind the closed doors in the family home, he was an abuser. And God love him. He's in spirit now, but he was abused himself. But in the monastic life, what I discovered as a young monk, after I was ordained, professed as a nursing monk back in 1968, I remember going to one of our professed houses where we had a small hospital for the mentally ill. And several of our older monks would come up and say, "Brother, get out. This is no life for you. We have no choice. Our families are gone. There's no one in the world who can give us friendship like our brothers here, but they don't even offer friendship because they're in a world of their own. They're so set in their ways. They're so selfish now. Oh yes, they join us for chapel, for prayer. They join us at meal times. But their minds are somewhere else and their hearts are frozen." As a young monk, just 6 months into my profession, I found that shocking. And then when I was sent to Manchester in 1971 to start my training as a state registered nurse in a state hospital with 2 other young monks, we all were greeted with the same request. Why are you living this life? You can do more for God on the outside than in here. It's barren. It's a desert. We just we just make the right sounds, but our hearts are cold. Get out while you can. Don't become entrapped in this misery. And the 3 young monks, we sat down and we talked about this and we thought, the poor brother monk, he's losing his marbles. But after many years, I discovered that we were wrong. We were uncharitable to even presume that he'd lost his marbles, because he spoke the truth. And what is so interesting, throughout my life, I've always tried to be there for my brother and sister Catholic nursing monks and nuns. And I have vivid memories of acting as a referee, separating friends of mine who were nuns in the convent who were punching 10 bells out of one another. And I said to them, you've just come from the Blessed Sacrament. You've just been saying Vespers together. Why are you doing this to one another? And the community were there separating them. And these were sisters of mercy. And then I thought, well, where's the mercy here? But then I realized the frustration. Because one of the sisters involved in that tirade of abuse, physical abuse, she was pulling the veil off the sister and giving her what for, had a mental health issue, and she was very demanding. Now, she wasn't an elderly nun, she was in her late 40s, but she was one of these that had to be led. She was an attentive seeker, she was on medication, and sadly, she made a lot of unnecessary demands on the poor superior and the other sisters, who were themselves nursing sisters. And I could feel the frustration of them all, and I wanted to bang their heads together and sit them down, but there was too much pain there. And I know that I can only speak for the Catholic monasteries. I cannot speak for the Born Again or the Evangelical Alliance. I cannot speak for what goes on in the Judaic family or the Buddhist family, but, well, I can with the Buddhist family, because I've known a Buddhist nun who experienced something similar. She fell foul of the sister in charge because the particular sister was rather brutish in her interpretation of the Buddha. And sister had an inquiring mind and wanted to develop more her spirituality, and she got punished. Spiritual melancholy is something that hits us all. I've been through it, where sometimes in prayer you just feel that God has gone on an away day special to Corfu, Orlando, or maybe Disney World for some respite. But all joking aside, I would like to read to you from the dictionary what it says about melancholy. It says here in the Chambers 20th Century Dictionary, melancholy, formerly melanchol, black bile and excess thereof, or the mental condition of temperament, supposed to result therefrom, surliness, continued depression of spirits, dejection, melancholia, indulgence in thoughts of pleasing sadness, pensiveness, prone to, affected by, expressive of, or causing melancholy, depressed, pensive. It's a mental state characterized by dejection and misery. And it goes on. So in this context, a spiritual depression does affect many holy men and women from within the Christian and non-Christian church. And when it hits, and it takes no prisoners. And I know from my spiritual director, who's an enclosed Poor Clare nun, a Colatine nun, and several of the sisters are really into Qigong, Janjong, and we've had 3 of them attuned to Reiki levels 1 and 2. And that is total anarchic within the Catholic Church. But these sisters are not cradle Catholics. They became converts later on in life. One of them was a Hell's Angel for 18 years. But beautiful women. But within that community, there were several sisters who were affected by this spiritual depression, this melancholia. And it hit everybody. It affected the running of the house, the monastery. And many of the sisters became witness to a tirade of abuse and sometimes physical brute force. And that is all to do with rejection, being rejected by one's peers, one's family. And I feel today that we need to be on our guard in our churches, in our mosques and synagogues, and be aware of brothers and sisters who may be suffering and reach out to them in love. Namaste. Shalom, inshallah, pax et bonum, Om Shanti.